What's up guys, DK here with Collector's Impact, and today we are going to go over the basics of how to check a Magic the Gathering card for authenticity. Once you start having cards that are worth hundreds if not thousands of dollars, it attracts the wrong type of people in terms of people trying to duplicate and swindle out there and take advantage of people who may not know how to tell the difference between a fake card and a real card. But it is important to note that the majority of any sort of fake card on the market is distinguishable from real ones. There has not been any proven cases up to this point in time in 2021 of a fake card that is identical to a real card. If that ever happens, that will be a pretty interesting day in the market, that's for sure. But luckily, for many different reasons, that hopefully shouldn't be the case unless someone actually gets a hold of like a Wizards of the Coast printer. And in that case, yeah, I'm pretty sure that Wizards would clamp down hard. So anyway, I kind of went on a rambling tangent there right at the beginning. What we're going to cover is old vintage cards, of course, since these have the highest price sticker in the market right now. Things like reserve list cards, Power 9 cards. In the case of the example card we're going to use in this video, this is a Mirror Universe. It is not a Power 9 card, but it is a reserve list card from Legends. It's extremely rare. Again, not on par with Power, but it is worth hundreds of dollars, and I anticipate it to go up the more time that passes by, that's for sure. And it's an awesome card. I mean, sacrifice it, switch life totals with your opponent. Yeah, it's one of my favorite old vintage cards. But before we go any further, if you wouldn't mind, if you like this type of content, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this in the future. I plan to do a video just like this regarding vintage Pokemon cards as well. If you are in that market or looking to get into that market, I have some pretty useful tips and tricks coming up on that as well. All right, so we're going to cover these three main types of cards, since these are the three main things that there really are in the market to go after, and that is the vintage, graded cards, and modern cards. All of them have different ways to tell if they're authentic or not, and luckily for us, there are actually quite a few different methods to use, and when you combine all of the methods together, you really can't go wrong. So let's go ahead and jump into the vintage, since that one's super fun. So the tools that you will likely need for this in order to get the most accurate readings possible is a loupe. Right here I just have like a regular 10x magnification loupe. They do sell loupes with lights attached to them, which I intend to buy one actually in the near future here. I would like to add one of those to my collection pretty soon, but this is pretty essential. It's a pretty essential tool for seeing, and we'll dive into why right now. All right, so first let's discuss Mirror Universe. As I mentioned there in the beginning, Mirror Universe is definitely a highly rare card, and therefore there are a lot of fakes of this card out in the market. But luckily for us, they are very easy to tell the difference. Especially on the older cards, they're the easiest to tell the difference between a counterfeit and a non-counterfeit. One thing right off the bat to look for is just general signs of aging on the card. Since this card was printed in 1994, at this point, this card is 27 years old. God, it feels weird even saying that. So one thing right off the bat is you're going to notice right away that the card is going to look different for several reasons from a new card, but a key one is it's aged, right? So it's paper, it's cardboard, you know, so it actually has some aging that you should be able to tell. And especially on a played card here, you can see the little a coating or whatever that they put on the cards back in the day of Legends. It's got a little bit of erosion, for lack of a better word. You can see some roughness there where it's been shuffled around and used. And you want to look for, especially when it comes to played cards, you want to look for any normal, natural edge wear on the cards. So one key giveaway if somebody's trying to fake edge wear is usually on cards with fake edge wear, you'll see they kind of take the whole card's edge and go up to like the sidewalk and just and scrape it against it, so it'll be really, really whitened. But that's just not how it works when you actually shuffle with a real card and play with it. I'm sure that there are some examples of fake cards out there that are slightly better, but it is a common thing that you'll see in counterfeit cards is just really noticeable fake edge wear. So always just look for little things, little indents on the card, little actual signs of authenticity and age. And then as time goes on and these cards get more and more expensive and rare, there will probably be even more scientific ways. You could get it laboratory tested, do some carbon dating or something, I don't know, but you can actually test the paper to verify the age of the actual paper. So that's the first kind of verification of authenticity, is just a visual inspection of the card. If you look over the card and you're like, this looks very suspicious, I want to dig into it more, then let's go to the next step, which would be the light test. So for the light test, it's important to note that how the cards were produced from the very, very beginning of Magic and even to this very day is that they have a layer of paper on the front, a layer of paper on the back, and in the middle there's a blue core paper that is like got glue or whatever, and it's how they manufacture it. It's a triple layered card, and a lot of counterfeits out there do not have that. It's really hard to describe it in a sense because it still allows the card to be transparent, translucent rather, and you can see light pass through the card when you shine a really, really bright LED, whereas with most fake cards, you can't see light pass through. They use too much glue or there's a different type of paper. In order for them to get the thickness right, it kind of sacrifices the transparent nature of the card itself on a counterfeit. That is something that, for whatever reason, a lot of counterfeiters haven't figured a workaround for that, which is good for us. So let's jump into this. For this, I'm going to turn the lights out and show you the magic. Okay, so boom, here we go with our flashlight. Now what you want to do is get a really nice bright LED flashlight and then put it behind the card. And you can either touch it right to the card, you can see the different lights that way, but you can see some blue hues, and really you can see the pretty even distribution of light, and you can see the back and the front at the same time. You can see the artwork coming through, and you can see the back of the card, the Magic the Gathering, and a slight blue hue all throughout the card. And it's very, very beautiful, and it should shine through on every aspect of the card. So that is test number 1 in terms of an actual scientific test to see if a card is genuine or not. Alright, and now that we got the light test out of the way, the next thing to look at is the actual way that they printed the cards is on a dot matrix printer, and they make these little rosette patterns really, really granularly into the pixelation of the image itself. It's very hard to see with the naked eye. You can see it with the naked eye, but that's where the loop comes in. So what I'm going to try to do here is put the loop in front of the camera lens for magnification and see if we can actually use the camera lens like an eye. So bear with me here for a second. Alright, so there we go. That's pretty much the best that I can do, but the loop is being used by the camera as if it were looking through it with an eyeball. So you can see the little rosette patterns there, and you can see they're all throughout the card. I'll just stand kind of still so you can see. See the little rosettes? Yeah. Now, one other thing that's really important to note is that the text on the card doesn't have the rosette pattern, and that is a clear indication that it is genuine. One of the things that you definitely want to look for is the background imagery, and all of that should have the rosette, but the text is laid on top of it. It's printed separately. So that's what you want to look for sure when you're looking under the loop. You want to see those rosette patterns, and you want to see if the text is superimposed over the rosettes. If you notice that the text has rosette patterns in it, that's a problem. And if you notice that there are no rosette patterns or it's blurry, you know, aside from my little camera view there, this camera is not exactly made for looking through loops, but you could tell there. So if the image itself, if those rosette patterns are blurry to your naked eye and or your looped eye, then there's likely a problem. And if they aren't there at all, there's a huge problem. That's a major red flag. Let's go to the third and final test for these vintage cards. Well, actually, there's a fourth test, but it's one you would not want to do. But I'll show it to you anyway, since we're discussing these. So the third and mostly final test that people will actually run on a vintage card is called the bend test. Now, you can do this to a genuine card like Mirror Universe or even a Black Lotus. You can do it. It's totally fine. It won't hurt the card, theoretically. But the point of this test, we'll go ahead and use this disenchant from Revised for this. The point of this test, the point of the bend test, is that when people trying to pass off a fake card as real make it, they usually, since the light test fails, it means that they don't have the correct distribution of glue and or adhesive to stick the pieces together. That's one key thing. In order to imitate that thickness, the same thickness, you typically have to have multiple pieces attached to each other. If they don't even have multiple pieces and they have a one-piece counterfeit that's just the same exact piece front and back, that's the clearest and most obvious example of a fake card, and they're very, very easily spotted, so you don't even really have to worry too much about that. They're so easy to tell the difference. But that's where the bend test comes in. So on a fake card, if you were to do this, you go end to end like this, but you don't crease the center. It has to be bent like a bow. It has to touch end to end on the card. But not, definitely, you can't fold it. If you fold it, it ruins the whole test, the whole point of the test. Oh, geez, I dropped it. Thank God, that's only like a 5-cent card. Hang on. All right, but after doing the bend test, you can inspect the card here as it's bent, and you see there's no crease there. And in the middle here on the inside, there's no crease there. And you can easily go ahead and kind of bend it back the other way, maybe put it back in a sleeve, put it in a book or whatever, and over time it will eventually flatten back out to being just fine since there's no actual crease in the card. But if there is a crease that shows up there or here, which I have seen a lot in my career in this in the field of trading cards, there were a lot of, especially back in the mid-2000s, there were a lot of fake cards that would come through the card shops, and people would come in and, I have a Black Lotus, and then you'd be like, well, you can do this to test, and you know what's going to happen, and then they do it, and then they're, oh my God, it creases all down the middle and stuff, and it's just, that's one of those feel-bad moments to the extreme for sure. If your card creases, it's fake. The real ones, they don't crease, no matter how many times you do that. Another method for the bend test that people do is edge to edge like this. That's another way that you can do it. If you want, it does the same thing. I prefer the end to end because it's the most genuine, you know, like if it's fake, it's getting creased doing that for sure. I've seen it myself in person, so I know it works. Before we get to the fourth and final way to test on the raw cards, I'll go ahead and show you on a modern card real quick. We'll just go over the same kind of stuff. So modern cards that are printed up to this very day have the exact same telltale signs as a vintage card, which is really cool. Even the modern cards have rosette patterns. They've got the rosette pattern, if you can see it, and the text is overlaid. Now, one thing with modern cards is there are a lot more printer variations today than there were back in the day when the vintage cards were made. So it's not always easy to tell the difference sometimes between some of the cards, like the ones that are printed in Belgium, have a really glossy nature to them. They have a really, really thick coat of gloss. I think this is a standard US printed one. The ones in the US have more of a rough matte kind of a feel to them. And then the ones printed in Japan are very similar to the Belgium ones. And they also have a slight bit of difference in thickness because of that too. So there's a lot more variation on the modern Magic card market. But there are no reserve list cards in the modern Magic cards. So at the most, you can't miss out on the same amount of money as if you were to get cheated out of a modern card as a vintage one, but you still want to make sure you're getting something authentic. So it never hurts to look to see if you got the rosette patterns. That's number one. Number two, let's do the lights again. You can see that it's not as transparent as the vintage card. It definitely has a lot more, it's a lot darker. than the vintage, but the light passes all the way through, and when you're looking at it with your own eye, you can clearly see like the front of the card and the back of the card and everything. It still applies to the same rules. See, there's the Deckmaster logo from the back and the text from the front. So it's very similar. Not quite as beautiful as a vintage, but it's the same concept. Lastly, on the modern card, the bend test works just the same today as it ever did. So that's cool. Now, to the fourth and final method, which works on modern and vintage, but the only kicker is your card's ruined after that. But if you're having an argument, it's real, it's fake, it's real, it's fake, you know, you can solve it by ripping it open. So yeah, the card's ruined now, but you can see here very, very clearly. There's that blue inner core, and here's the back that's white paper and the front that's white paper. So that is proof right there of exactly how it's produced and how you can tell if the card is genuine or not. That's what the light test is really to determine. So no need to rip your card unless you just really don't care and you want to know for sure. There are cases out there of people ripping Power 9 cards like idiots, and they turned out to be real. So why anyone in their right mind would do that as your test, I don't know, but it is an option. So there you go. And the last thing to discuss on modern cards that is not the case with vintage is this little authentication seal that they put on the modern card. So that is something that is unique and an extra form of protection for the collectors out there. So the thing with this is that this is flush with the card. So if you run your finger on it, you should feel no indent. Maybe a very slight indent, you know what I mean? I mean, you can tell a slight difference in material. You can feel that it's a little foil, but you shouldn't feel like a divot, like a hardcore divot or a bump raised up from the card. It's supposed to be relatively smooth. I can feel personally with my finger here, I can feel that bump, not the bump, but I can feel the presence of the foil dot, but it's not, you know, crazy. It is flush with the card. And then one other thing with that is the pattern that's actually on it. You see there, it's got like the little planeswalker symbols in the pattern. So that's one of the key things, is the little pattern and how it's laid out and the type of foiling and everything. So for that, I would say just clearly any packs that you've opened yourself and you have example cards that are genuine, just compare them to whatever you're concerned about. And if they're the exact same 100%, then you're probably good. But if there's any difference, any variation in that bump, in that little insignia, then do the other tests on it just to be safe. Except for ripping it, that's pointless. And lastly, we'll go over really quick a graded card. So there is some concern out there in the market when it comes to fake graded cards. And it's important to note a few things, just in case you guys aren't aware, in terms of, I'm talking specifically about PSA in this particular video. So there are a couple of ways that you can tell if your PSA case is genuine, if the label is genuine, and if the card is genuine. The first thing is that since it is just in a transparent case, you can do the Rosette test, you know, with a loop. You can see yourself the card, so that's always nice. You can also do the light test because the whole case is transparent. So you can do both of those tests on a graded card, and you'll have a pretty good indication doing that. But aside from that, the actual case, it has this, I forgot what they call it, security ink technology or whatever, where it has a certain type of shine to it and everything. It's kind of like the watermarks on currency, how you can tell if it's fake or not. So they have that there. Also on the newest ones that are like the 5 million number, or, you know, like up to 40, I think it's like 43 million and above. Yeah, if it's like 43 million and above in that spot, then it should have this extra added thing of authenticity, if it'll show up on camera for you guys, which it's not wanting to show up too much. I mean, you can see it kind of right here. There's this little strip on the top that reads PSA, PSA, PSA all the way across the top in like a very, very, very fine, hard to see film that's at the top of the slab. So that's another added protection. One other thing is this number. They actually have a database based on this number. You can go on their website, type in the number, and then it will tell you all of the details of the card and authenticate on their website that it exists in their database, when it was graded, the grade it received, and that kind of information. They can track back to it. And then once again, it has this as well, and this also doubles as the serial number. That's what it is, so you can keep track of it that way as well. And oh yeah, the last thing when it comes to these cases is they have a tamper-evident security measure in them. So they're actually designed to be sealed. They're hermetically sealed, and if anybody tampers with it, say you take it out of this case and get a screwdriver and try to pry open the corner to pop it open, take the card out and put another one in and reseal it. If anybody does that, then the plastic will turn blue. It has a thing where it'll be clear. It turns blue and or black. I mean, it becomes really noticeable that it's been cracked open. So it has a security measure built into each of these genuine PSA cases. So there are definitely quite a few ways to tell if the slab is genuine or not. And then, of course, just sending it in yourself is always your extreme peace of mind, which I did with this one. I'm the original and only owner of this card so far. So, yeah, I know for a fact that that's genuine. And also, that's the ultimate way for you to authenticate a card if you're concerned like that Mirror Universe is fake. Send it to PSA, get it graded. That's what I'm going to do with this one. I'm not concerned of its authenticity, but I like to have them preserved in those cases. But it'll come back probably a 3 or a 4 or maybe a 5, something like that. But for long-term storage, it'll be hermetically sealed and it'll be authenticated and serialized and all that kind of stuff. So to me, that's well worth it, just to have that peace of mind that it's 100% genuine, and you can then sell it as a 100% genuine card without people worrying too much about it. Anyway, that was kind of a long-winded video for this subject matter. I think I covered pretty much everything there is to cover, at least 99.9% of it, so there will always be edge cases, I'm sure. But if you follow this method, it should definitely help you out for 99% of the cards out there. So anyway, I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, definitely remember to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel for more videos around cards and collectibles, and that Pokemon one if you want to see that video coming up soon as well. So thanks again for coming by. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.